I stared at my phone screen, watching the group chat light up with messages about weekend plans and birthday celebrations. My friends were discussing a surprise party they were throwing for someone named Jessica. I smiled, genuinely happy for her, even though my own birthday had come and gone 3 days ago without a single text from my family. 27 years old, and I still felt that familiar ache every October when my birthday rolled around. Every single year, my parents and my older sister Veronica found reasons to be unavailable. Work conferences, important deadlines, last-minute emergencies that somehow always coincided with October 15th. When I was 12, they missed my birthday because Veronica had a dance recital. At 16, my father had an urgent business trip to Dallas. At 21, my mother claimed she had a migraine and stayed in bed all day while Veronica went shopping with her friends. The excuses piled up like layers of sediment, each one pressing down harder on my chest. I worked as a commercial interior designer in Portland, specializing in restaurant and cafe spaces. The work kept me busy, and over the past 3 years, I had built a solid reputation in the industry. My portfolio included some of the most talked-about dining establishments in the Pacific Northwest. The income was good, better than good actually, and I had been careful with my investments. My apartment in the Pearl District reflected my design aesthetic. Clean lines, natural materials, warm lighting that made everything feel like home. But it was just me there. Always just me. Especially on days that should have mattered. This year had been different, though. I had decided to stop waiting for my family to remember, to care, to show up. Instead, I took matters into my own hands. I had been searching for a property for months, something that would be entirely mine. A place where I could create new memories without the weight of family disappointment. 3 weeks before my birthday, I found it. A lake cabin in the Cascade Mountains, about 2 hours from Portland. The listing showed a charming structure with cedar siding, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the water, and a dock that stretched out into the crystalline lake. The property sat on 2 acres of pine forest, completely private, completely perfect. The price was steep, but I had saved aggressively and made smart investments. The previous owners were retiring and moving to Arizona. They wanted a quick sale, and I wanted a sanctuary. We closed the deal in record time. I spent my actual birthday, October 15th, driving up to the cabin with my closest friends. Brooke, who worked as a physical therapist, Daniel, a graphic designer with an infectious laugh, and Kiara, a pastry chef who had promised to bring enough desserts to feed an army. The day had been magical. We arrived around noon, and the autumn sun painted everything in shades of gold and amber. Brooke brought champagne. Daniel set up a speaker system and filled the cabin with music. Kiara unveiled a 3-tiered chocolate cake that she had spent 2 days perfecting. We spent hours on the dock, our feet dangling in the cool water, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel taught us a card game his grandmother had shown him. Kiara told stories about her disaster dates from the past month. Brooke demonstrated yoga poses that sent us all tumbling into laughter. As the sun set, we built a fire in the stone fireplace inside the cabin. The warmth spread through the space, and I felt something I had not experienced on my birthday in years. Contentment. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. Later that evening, as we roasted marshmallows and watched the stars multiply across the dark sky, Brooke raised her champagne glass. "To Addison," she said, her voice warm with affection. "The most talented designer I know, the best friend anyone could ask for, and now a lakefront property owner. Happy birthday." We clinked glasses, and I felt tears prick my eyes. These people, who had no obligation to me beyond friendship, had shown up. They had driven 2 hours, brought gifts and food, and given me their time and attention. They had made me feel valued. The next day, after everyone left, I stayed at the cabin alone. I walked the perimeter of the property, planned where I would plant wildflowers in the spring, and imagined future weekends filled with peace and possibility. Before I drove back to Portland that Sunday evening, I took several photos. The cabin bathed in morning light, the view from the dock, the cozy interior with its exposed beams and stone fireplace. I posted them to Instagram with a simple caption, "Best birthday party ever." I did not expect what happened next. Monday morning arrived with the usual rhythm of work emails and project deadlines. I was in my home office reviewing renderings for a new farm-to-table restaurant in Southeast Portland when my phone started buzzing incessantly. The first message was from my mother. "Addison, we need to talk. Call me immediately." Then my father. "What is this property I'm seeing on your Instagram? We need to discuss this as a family." Then Veronica, my sister. "Are you kidding me right now? You bought a cabin without telling us?" I stared at the messages, confusion giving way to irritation. They had not wished me happy birthday. They had not called or texted on October 15th. But now, 3 days later, they were blowing up my phone because I had posted photos of my cabin. I ignored the messages and tried to focus on work. My client wanted to incorporate more natural elements into the restaurant design, and I was sketching ideas for a living wall installation when my doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw all 3 of them standing on my doorstep. My mother, Patricia, wore her typical designer outfit, her highlighted hair perfectly styled. My father, Gerald, stood with his arms crossed, his expression stern. Veronica leaned against the doorframe, scrolling through her phone with an air of practiced boredom. I considered not answering. I considered pretending I was not home. But curiosity won out. I opened the door. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not moving to let them in. "We need to talk about this cabin," my father said, his voice carrying that authoritative tone he used in business negotiations. He owned a successful import-export company, and he spoke to everyone like they were subordinates. "What about it?" I kept my hand on the door, ready to close it if necessary. "Let us in, Addison," my mother said. "This is not a conversation for the hallway." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. They filed into my apartment, and I noticed how they looked around with barely concealed judgment. My mother straightened a throw pillow. Veronica wrinkled her nose at my collection of vintage travel posters. My father went straight to my living room and sat down like he owned the place. "When were you planning to tell us about this purchase?" he began. "I was not planning to tell you at all," I said flatly. "It is my property. I bought it with my own money. It has nothing to do with any of you." Veronica looked up from her phone. "Actually, it has everything to do with us. That cabin should be family property." I laughed, the sound sharp and bitter. "Family property? That is rich coming from people who have not bothered to acknowledge my existence for the past year." "Do not be dramatic," my mother said, settling onto my couch. "We have been busy. You know how hectic things get. Too busy to send a text on my birthday?" I crossed my arms. "I posted those photos 4 days after my birthday. Not one of you remembered." "Your birthday?" My father waved a dismissive hand. "You are 27 years old, Addison. Birthdays are for children." The casual cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. I had heard variations of it my entire life, but it never stopped hurting. "Why are you really here?" I asked, my voice cold. My father leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "That cabin represents a significant asset. Property in the Cascades is valuable, especially lakefront property. As your parents, we have a right to be involved in major financial decisions like this." "A right?" I repeated slowly. "You have a right to be involved in how I spend my own money?" "We are family," my mother interjected. "Family shares things. That cabin could be a wonderful vacation spot for all of us. Veronica's children would love it." Veronica had 2 kids, ages 5 and 7, from a marriage that had imploded 2 years ago. She lived with our parents now, rent-free, while working part-time at a boutique our mother's friend owned. "You want me to share my cabin with you," I said, working to keep my voice level. "The family that forgot my birthday wants access to the property I bought to celebrate my birthday alone, because none of you cared enough to show up." "There is no need for that tone," my father said sharply. "We are here now, are we not? We are taking an interest." "Because you saw something you want," I shot back. "You are not interested in me. You are interested in what I have." "This is exactly why we do not visit more often," Veronica muttered, still scrolling through her phone. "You always have to make everything about you and your feelings." The audacity of that statement left me momentarily speechless. Before I could respond, my father stood up, signaling the conversation was about to take a different turn. "Here is the situation, Addison," he said, his voice taking on a formal quality that made my stomach drop. "Your mother and I have been discussing this, and we believe that 50% of that property should be transferred to the family." I stared at him. "Excuse me?" 50% ownership," my mother confirmed, as if she were discussing dinner plans. "It is only fair. We are your family. We have supported you your entire life." "Supported me?" My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. "You paid for college, yes, and I have thanked you for that repeatedly. But I have been financially independent for 6 years. I paid for this cabin entirely with my own money. You have no legal claim to any of it." "Legal claim," my father scoffed. "This is not about legality, Addison. This is about family obligation. We raised you, fed you, clothed you. The least you can do is share your good fortune with us." My good fortune? I felt heat rising in my chest. I worked 80-hour weeks for 3 years to build my business. I saved every penny I could. I made sacrifices. This cabin is not luck. It is the result of my labor. "And who do you think gave you the foundation to be able to work those hours?" my mother asked. "We paid for your education. We gave you a stable home. Everything you have because of us." Veronica finally looked up from her phone. "Just give them the paperwork, Addison. It is not that complicated. We all get to use the cabin and everyone is happy." "No," I said firmly. "Absolutely not." The word hung in the air like smoke. My father's expression hardened into something cold and calculated. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. Even Veronica seemed surprised, as if she had genuinely expected me to roll over and comply. "No," my father repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "No," I said again, stronger this time. "This is my property. I am not transferring any percentage of ownership to anyone. You need to leave now." "You are making a mistake," my mother said, standing up. "Family should come first, Addison. We have always been there for you, and this is how you repay us?" "Always been there?" I felt something break inside me, some final thread of restraint snapping. "You have never been there. Not for my high school graduation, when you took Veronica to a spa weekend instead. Not for my college showcase, when I spent months preparing my portfolio, and you did not even show up to the presentation. Not for my birthday, any birthday, in the last decade. You are here now because you want something from me, not because you care about me." "That is a horrible thing to say," Veronica chimed in, finally pocketing her phone. "Mom and Dad have done everything for us. Just because you are bitter and ungrateful does not mean you get to rewrite history." "I am not rewriting anything," I said. "I am finally seeing it clearly. You have used me as the convenient child, the one who does not need attention or validation, so you can focus all your energy on Veronica. And I let it happen. I kept hoping that if I was successful enough, accomplished enough, you would finally see me. But you do not see me. You see what I can give you." My father moved toward the door, his jaw set. "You have 48 hours to reconsider this decision. If you choose not to share this property with your family, there will be consequences." "Consequences?" I followed him to the door. "What are you going to do? Stop ignoring me even more than you already do." "We could make things difficult for you professionally," he said, turning back to face me. I have connections in this city. I know people who work with designers. It would be unfortunate if your reputation suffered because of your selfishness." The threat was clear, and it sent a chill down my spine. But underneath the fear, I felt something else rising. Anger, pure and clarifying. "Get out," I said quietly. "Get out of my apartment right now." 48 hours, my mother repeated as they filed out. "Think carefully about what matters more to you, a cabin or your family." I closed the door behind them and locked it. My hands were shaking. I walked to my couch and sat down, trying to process what had just happened. They had not come to apologize for missing my birthday. They had not come to reconcile or rebuild our fractured relationship. They had come to stake a claim on something that was mine, something I had worked for and earned without any help from them. The worst part was not even the demand itself. It was the casual entitlement behind it, the assumption that my accomplishments were somehow theirs to claim, that my hard work was just an extension of their investment in raising me. I pulled out my phone and opened a group chat with Brooke, Daniel, and Kiara. I typed out what had happened, my fingers flying across the screen. Their responses came quickly, a stream of outraged emojis and supportive messages. "They did not just threaten you," Brooke texted. "That is literally extortion." "Do not give them anything," Daniel added. "That cabin is yours." Kiara sent a string of angry face emojis followed by, "Want me to make them a cake? A really terrible cake? I can make it look good but taste like regret." Despite everything, I smiled. These people, my chosen family, had my back without question. They were not asking what they could get from me. They were asking what they could do for me. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation in my mind. My father's threat echoed in my thoughts. He had connections in Portland. He could damage my reputation if he wanted to. Several of my biggest clients had come through referrals from people in his business network. I thought about my cabin, my sanctuary, the place where I had finally felt peace on my birthday. The idea of sharing it with my family, of having them invade that space with their demands and disappointments, made my stomach turn. But the alternative was potentially watching my career crumble because my father decided to punish me for setting boundaries. By Tuesday morning, I had made a decision. I was not going to give them anything. Not 50%, not 10%, not even a key to the front door. If they wanted to destroy my professional reputation, they could try. But I was not going to let them take something I had earned. I called my lawyer, a sharp woman named Francine, who had helped me set up my LLC 3 years ago. I explained the situation, and she listened without interrupting. "They have no legal standing," she confirmed. "The property is in your name, purchased with your funds. They cannot force you to transfer ownership. As for the threats about your career, that is harassment. Document everything. Keep records of all communications with them." "What if he actually follows through?" I asked. "What if he starts calling my clients, spreading rumors?" "Then we pursue legal action," Francine said calmly. "But in my experience, bullies like this usually back down when they realize they are not going to get what they want easily. Stand your ground, Addison. Do not let them intimidate you." I spent the rest of Tuesday and all of Wednesday in a state of anxious anticipation, waiting for my phone to ring, waiting for the next confrontation. The 48-hour deadline my father had given me was approaching, and I had no intention of calling him to discuss any kind of transfer. Wednesday evening, I was working late on the restaurant renderings when my doorbell rang again. I checked the peephole and saw Veronica standing alone this time. I debated not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door but did not invite her in. "What do you want?" I asked. Veronica looked different somehow. Her usual air of bored superiority seemed diminished. She held a coffee cup from a nearby cafe, and she looked tired. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Just for a minute. I promise I'm not here to fight." Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. She walked in and sat down on the edge of my couch, gripping her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Mom and Dad are furious," she said without preamble. "They really expected you to cave, and you are here to convince me to change my mind?" I remained standing, keeping distance between us. "Actually, no," Veronica said, looking down at her cup. "I am here to tell you something I probably should have said years ago." She paused, seeming to gather her courage. "I am sorry." I waited, not trusting this sudden shift. "I have been thinking about what you said," she continued, "about how they have always focused on me. You are right. They have. And I let it happen. I even encouraged it because it was easier than dealing with my own problems." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because I overheard them talking last night," Veronica said. "They are not just planning to make things difficult for you professionally. They are planning to challenge the property purchase itself." My stomach dropped. "On what grounds?" "They are claiming you used family money for the down payment. Dad is saying he gave you a loan 3 years ago that you never repaid, and that money went toward your business, and then eventually toward the cabin purchase." "That is a lie," I said, my voice rising. "He never gave me a loan. I have never borrowed money from them." "I know," Veronica said quietly. "But Dad has been talking to his lawyer. He thinks he can muddy the waters enough to at least tie up the property in legal disputes for years. Make it too expensive and frustrating for you to fight." I felt the room tilt slightly. This was worse than professional sabotage. This was a direct attack on my ownership of the cabin, on the one thing I had bought to create peace in my life. "Why are you warning me?" I asked. Veronica looked up, and I saw something genuine in her expression for the first time in years. "Because I am tired of being their puppet, and because what they are doing is wrong. I have 2 kids now, and I keep thinking about what kind of example I am setting for them. If they grow up watching me go along with this kind of manipulation, what am I teaching them?" She stood up, setting her coffee cup on my side table. "I do not expect you to forgive me for all the years I sided with them against you. But I wanted you to know what they are planning so you can protect yourself." After she left, I immediately called Francine and explained the new development. She sighed heavily. "This is a common intimidation tactic," she said. "Create a false paper trail, make bogus claims, hope the other party gives up rather than fighting. The good news is that without actual documentation of this supposed loan, they have no case. The bad news is that they can still file the claim and force you to defend yourself, which costs time and money." "What do I do?" I asked. "We get ahead of it," Francine said. "I want you to gather every financial record you have, bank statements, investment accounts, tax returns, everything that shows your income and savings for the past 6 years. We are going to build an ironclad case showing exactly where every dollar came from for that cabin purchase." I spent Thursday and Friday compiling documents. I printed bank statements showing my steady savings deposits. I pulled tax returns demonstrating my growing income as my business expanded. I gathered investment statements showing dividends and returns that had contributed to my down payment fund. As I worked, I found myself getting angrier, not just at my parents for their manipulative tactics, but at myself for being surprised. This was who they had always been. I had just been too desperate for their approval to see it clearly. Friday evening, Brooke called me. "Daniel and I are coming over. Kiara is bringing food. You need a break from all this legal stuff." When they arrived, Kiara had bags filled with Vietnamese takeout from her favorite restaurant. Daniel brought a bottle of wine. Brooke carried a stack of comedies on DVD. "We are not talking about your nightmare family tonight," Brooke announced. "We are eating spring rolls, drinking wine, and watching ridiculous movies." For a few hours, I let myself forget about property disputes and legal threats. We laughed until our stomachs hurt watching terrible action movies. Kiara told stories about her most demanding wedding cake clients. Daniel showed us his latest design project for a music festival. Around midnight, after they had left, I sat alone in my living room, feeling the weight settle back onto my shoulders. My phone buzzed with an email from my father. Addison, this is your final opportunity to resolve this matter amicably. Transfer 50% ownership of the cabin to your mother and me by Monday at 5 p.m., or we will be forced to take legal action. This is not the outcome any of us want, but you are leaving us no choice. Your refusal to compromise shows a fundamental lack of family values. We are disappointed in you. Dad. I read the email 3 times, feeling my hands clench into fists. The manipulation was so obvious, so transparent. The deadline, the guilt trip, the implication that I was the problem, not them. I forwarded the email to Francine with a simple message. They are escalating. Her response came back within minutes. Good. Let them. Every communication like this strengthens our case if they do file suit. Keep forwarding everything they send. Saturday morning, I drove up to the cabin alone. I needed to be there, to remember why I was fighting this battle. The drive through the mountains calmed me, and when I arrived and saw the lake sparkling in the autumn sunlight, I felt my resolve harden. This place was mine. I had earned it, and I was not going to let anyone take it from me. I spent the day walking the property, taking photographs of every corner, documenting everything. I measured the dock. I noted the condition of the cedar siding. I made lists of improvements I wanted to make in the spring. As I worked, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. Addison, this is Trevor Hoffman. I work with your father at the Import-Export Company. I recognized the name. Trevor was my father's business partner, the co-owner of the company. How did you get my number? I asked cautiously. Your father gave it to me, Trevor said. Listen, I know this is unusual, but I need to talk to you about something important. Can we meet? Somewhere neutral? Why would I meet with my father's business partner? I asked. Because what he is doing to you is wrong, Trevor said bluntly, and because I have information you need to hear. Please, just give me 30 minutes. Something in his tone made me agree. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop halfway between the cabin and Portland the next morning. I drove back to the city Saturday evening, my mind spinning with questions. Why would my father's business partner want to talk to me? What information could he possibly have? Sunday morning, I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. I ordered a latte and sat near the window, watching cars pass by on the highway. Trevor arrived exactly on time. He was in his mid-50s, with graying hair and the kind of tired eyes that suggested he had not been sleeping well. He ordered black coffee and sat down across from me. Thank you for coming, he said. I know this is strange. What is this about? I asked directly. Trevor pulled out his phone and opened a folder of documents. Your father has been embezzling from our company. He has been doing it for about 2 years, maybe longer. I only discovered it 3 months ago. I stared at him, not sure I had heard correctly. What? He has been creating false invoices, routing payments to dummy accounts, skimming profits, Trevor explained. I have been investigating quietly, building a case. The total so far is over $800,000. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Why are you telling me this? Because when I confronted him 2 weeks ago, he promised he would pay it back. He said he had assets he could liquidate. Then I heard through mutual friends that he was pressuring you about some property you bought. Trevor looked at me steadily. I think he wants that cabin, so he can sell it and use the proceeds to cover what he stole. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The sudden interest in my property, the aggressive demands for 50% ownership, the threats and manipulation. It was not about family at all. It was about my father's desperation to cover his crimes. "Does my mother know?" I asked. "I do not know," Trevor admitted, "but I suspect she knows something is wrong. Your father has been stressed, short-tempered. He keeps talking about a major financial opportunity that is going to solve all his problems." "The cabin," I said quietly. "Your cabin," Trevor corrected. "Which is why I am here. I am filing a lawsuit against your father and the company next week to recover the stolen funds. I wanted you to know before it becomes public. And I wanted to warn you that he is going to get more desperate as the walls close in." "What should I do?" I asked. "Protect yourself," Trevor said. "Do not sign anything he sends you. Do not transfer any property. And maybe consider getting a restraining order if he continues to threaten you." After Trevor left, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, trying to process everything. My father was a criminal. He had stolen from his own business partner and was now trying to steal from me to cover it up. I thought about my mother, living in that expensive house, wearing designer clothes, completely unaware that her lifestyle was built on theft. Or maybe she did know. Maybe she was complicit. I honestly could not tell anymore. I drove home and called an emergency meeting with Brooke, Daniel, and Kiara. When they arrived, I told them everything Trevor had revealed. "Holy hell," Daniel said. "Your dad is not just a jerk. He is an actual criminal." "What are you going to do?" Kiara asked. "I am going to fight," I said. "I am going to protect my property, and I am going to make sure he faces consequences for what he has done." Monday morning came too quickly. I woke up knowing that 5 p.m. was my father's deadline. I had already decided I was not going to respond to his ultimatum, but the day still felt heavy with anticipation. I went to my office and tried to work, but concentration was impossible. Around 2 p.m., Francine called. "I just received notice that your father has filed suit," she said. "He is claiming that he loaned you $200,000 in 2022, and that this loan was intended specifically for property investment. He is seeking a lien on the cabin until the loan is repaid, plus interest." "He is lying," I said. "I never received any money from him." "I know," Francine said, "but now we have to go through the process of proving that in court. I need you to come to my office tomorrow morning. We are going to prepare a comprehensive response." At 5:01 p.m., my phone rang. My father. I let it go to voicemail. He called 3 more times. Then my mother called, then Veronica. I ignored them all. Finally, my father left a voicemail. I listened to it on speaker while Brooke sat beside me for support. "Addison, you have made a serious mistake. I gave you every opportunity to handle this reasonably. Now we will let the courts decide who deserves that property. And while we are in litigation, good luck keeping your clients. I have already started making calls. You will find that Portland is a very small community when you have burned bridges with the wrong people. Call me if you come to your senses." The threat was clear and undeniable. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Francine. That night, I lay awake thinking about everything that had happened. 10 days ago, I had been celebrating my birthday at a beautiful cabin with friends who loved me. Now I was facing a frivolous lawsuit, professional sabotage, and the realization that my father was a thief, willing to destroy his own daughter to save himself. But underneath the anxiety and anger, I felt something else growing. Determination. My father thought he could intimidate me into submission. He thought I would fold under pressure like I always had before. He was wrong. Tuesday morning, I met with Francine and we began building our defense. We organized every financial document I had gathered, creating a clear trail showing exactly how I had saved for and purchased the cabin. We drafted a motion to dismiss the lawsuit as frivolous. We prepared a countersuit for harassment and attempted extortion. While we worked, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Trevor. Check your email." sending you copies of the evidence I have against your father. You might need it. I opened my laptop and found an email from Trevor with dozens of attachments. Bank records showing transfers to accounts in my father's name. Invoices for shipments that never existed. Emails discussing payments that had no corresponding business justification. This is incredible, Francine said, scanning through the documents. This completely undermines your father's credibility. If he is stealing from his business partner, a judge is going to seriously question his claims about loaning you money. Can we use this in our case? I asked. Absolutely, Francine said. This goes directly to his character and his motivation for filing this suit. He is not a concerned parent trying to recover a legitimate loan. He is a desperate criminal, trying to liquidate assets to cover his tracks. Over the next few days, I watched my father's threats begin to materialize. 2 of my restaurant clients called to pause our projects pending some concerns they had heard about my reliability. Another client asked for a meeting to discuss whether I was financially stable enough to complete their project. The Whisper campaign was working. My father was systematically contacting people in his network, planting seeds of doubt about my professionalism and stability. But I had my own network. I called every client directly and explained that I was dealing with a family legal matter that some people were using to spread false information about my business. I offered references from past projects. I showed them my portfolio and financial records proving my business was solid. Most of them understood. A few remained skeptical. One client dropped me entirely, saying they could not afford any risk of delays. It hurt, but it also made me angrier. My father was not just attacking me personally. He was attacking my livelihood, my professional reputation, everything I had built independently of him. Thursday afternoon, I received an email from Veronica. I told Mom about what Dad did at his company. She did not believe me at first, but then she started looking through their financial records. She found things that scared her. She is seeing a lawyer tomorrow about protecting herself. I thought you should know. I felt a strange satisfaction reading that message. My mother had enabled my father's behavior for years, had chosen him over me repeatedly. Now she was discovering that loyalty to someone like him came with a price. Friday morning, Francine called with news. The judge assigned to your case has experience with fraudulent lien claims. I talked to his clerk, and he is not pleased with the lack of documentation supporting your father's loan claim. We have a hearing scheduled for next month, but I think we have a good shot at getting this dismissed quickly. What about the professional damage? I asked. Can we do anything about that? We can pursue a defamation claim if we can prove he made specific false statements about you to your clients, Francine said. Start documenting who has contacted you, what they said, and who they heard it from. Build the paper trail. I spent the weekend doing exactly that. I reached out to every client who had expressed concerns and asked them directly what they had heard and from whom. Several were willing to talk. They had received phone calls from my father or people connected to him, suggesting I was facing bankruptcy, that I had creditors pursuing me, that my business was failing. All lies, all designed to destroy what I had built. By Monday, I had statements from 4 different clients detailing the false information they had been told. Francine was thrilled. This is textbook defamation, she said. He made false statements. He knew they were false, and he made them with the intent to harm your business. We are adding this to our countersuit. That evening, I met Brooke, Daniel, and Kiara at a Korean barbecue restaurant. We had not gotten together since the legal battle started, and I needed to see friendly faces. How are you holding up? Brooke asked after we had ordered. I am exhausted, I admitted. But I am also angrier than I have ever been in my life, and that anger is keeping me going. Good, Daniel said. You should be angry. What they are doing is vile. Kiara reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You are going to win this. You have the truth on your side. I keep thinking about all the years I spent trying to please them, I said. All the birthdays I spent hoping they would remember. All the accomplishments I achieved thinking maybe this time they would care. I wasted so much time. You did not waste anything, Brooke said firmly. You built an incredible career. You made real friends. You bought a cabin on a lake. Those things are not nothing. They are everything, Daniel added. And your parents do not get to take credit for any of it. The food arrived, and we spent the next hour cooking meat on the tabletop grill, laughing at Daniel's terrible jokes, listening to Kiara's latest dating disaster story. For a little while, I forgot about lawsuits and family betrayal. Walking back to my apartment that night, I felt something shift inside me. I had spent 27 years seeking approval from people who were never going to give it. I had shaped myself around their absence, their disappointment, their casual cruelty. But I did not need their approval. I had built a life without them, and it was a good life. I had friends who showed up. I had a career I was proud of. I had a cabin by a lake where I could find peace. They wanted to take that from me, but they could not, because all they had were lies and manipulation, and I had the truth. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I had not felt in weeks. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I called Francine. I want to go on the offensive. No more just defending against their attacks. I want to file for a restraining order against my father based on his threats and harassment. I want to pursue the defamation claim aggressively, and I want to make sure the judge in our property case knows about Trevor's lawsuit and the embezzlement charges. Now we are talking, Francine said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Let me draft the paperwork. This is going to get interesting. Over the next 2 weeks, we built our offensive strategy. We filed for a temporary restraining order, supported by my father's threatening voicemail and the documented harassment of my clients. We submitted a motion to the judge overseeing the property case, requesting that he consider my father's credibility in light of the embezzlement allegations. We prepared a comprehensive defamation lawsuit with specific damages tied to lost client revenue. My father had thought he could steamroll me with legal threats and professional sabotage. He had underestimated how strong I had become in the years I had spent building a life without him. He was about to learn the cost of that mistake. The restraining order hearing took place on a cold morning in late November. I sat in the courtroom next to Francine, watching my father enter with his attorney. He looked older than I remembered, his face drawn and pale. When his eyes met mine, I did not look away. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no patience for nonsense, reviewed the evidence. She listened to the threatening voicemail. She read through the documentation of my father contacting my clients with false information. She examined the timeline of events. Mr. Gerald, she said, using his first name with deliberate formality, you are accused of harassing your daughter and interfering with her business relationships. What do you have to say to these allegations? My father's attorney stood up. Your Honor, this is a family dispute that has been blown out of proportion. My client is merely trying to recover a legitimate loan. Any communications with third parties were made in good faith. Good faith? The judge's eyebrows rose. Telling multiple business owners that his daughter is bankrupt and facing creditors when none of that is true? That is good faith? We dispute that those statements were made, the attorney said weakly. I have affidavits from 4 different individuals detailing exactly what was said to them, the judge replied. She looked at my father directly. Mr. Gerald, I am granting a temporary restraining order. You are to have no contact with your daughter, directly or indirectly. You are not to contact her clients, her friends, or anyone else in her professional or personal network. Any violation will result in immediate contempt charges. Do you understand? My father's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Yes, Your Honor. As we left the courtroom, I felt the first real sense of victory. My father could no longer hide behind the pretense of family concern. A judge had officially recognized his behavior as harassment, but the property case was still pending, and that was the real battle. 2 weeks later, Trevor's lawsuit against my father became public. The local business journal ran a story about the embezzlement allegations, detailing the hundreds of thousands of dollars that had been diverted from the import-export company. My father's reputation in the Portland business community, carefully built over decades, began to crumble. My mother filed for separation and moved out of the family house. According to Veronica, who kept me updated despite everything, she had discovered that my father had taken out a second mortgage on their home without telling her, using the money to cover his missing funds at work. The web of lies was unraveling, and everyone could see it. In early December, we had the hearing for my father's property claim. The judge was a stern man in his 70s who had read through all the submitted documents before the hearing began. My father's attorney tried to argue that the loan had been informal, a family arrangement without formal documentation. But when the judge asked for any evidence of the money transfer, any bank records showing $200,000 moving from my father's accounts to mine, there was nothing. So you are asking this court to believe that you loaned your daughter $200,000 and kept no records of the transaction? The judge asked. No bank transfers, no checks, no written agreement? It was a family matter, my father's attorney said. These arrangements are often informal. Not when they involve six-figure sums, the judge replied dryly. He turned to Francine. Does the defendant have evidence to counter this claim? Francine stood and presented our binder of financial records. Your Honor, we have 6 years of bank statements, investment records, and tax returns showing exactly how Miss Addison saved and invested the money for her property purchase. Every dollar is accounted for. There is no mysterious influx of funds, no unexplained deposits, nothing that would indicate a loan of any kind. The judge reviewed the documents for several minutes while the courtroom sat in silence. Finally, he looked up. This is one of the more frivolous claims I have seen in recent memory, he said. The plaintiff has provided no evidence of a loan. The defendant has provided extensive evidence of independent savings and investment. Additionally, I note that the plaintiff is currently facing serious allegations of embezzlement from his own business. This court finds that the claim of a loan is without merit and appears to be an attempt to seize assets to cover financial difficulties resulting from the plaintiff's own alleged misconduct. He struck his gavel. The case is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, I am ordering the plaintiff to pay the defendant's legal fees. This case never should have been filed. My father's face went red, then white. His attorney tried to say something, but the judge was already moving on to the next case. Outside the courtroom, Francine hugged me. That is as decisive a victory as you can get. The property is yours, free and clear, and he has to pay your legal bills. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. What about the defamation case? We proceed with that separately, Francine said. But after today, I think his attorney is going to recommend he settle rather than face another public beating in court. Christmas came and went without any contact from my family. I spent the holiday at the cabin with Brooke, Daniel, and Kiara. We cooked a massive dinner, played board games by the fire, and went on long walks through the snow-covered forest. On Christmas Eve, Daniel proposed a toast. To Addison, who stood up to bullies and won. I have not won yet, I said. The defamation case is still pending. You have already won the important part, Brooke said. You protected what was yours. You did not let them intimidate you into giving up. She was right. Whether or not the defamation case succeeded, I had already achieved what mattered most. My cabin was mine. My business was recovering, and I had proven to myself that I was strong enough to fight back. In January, my father's attorney contacted Francine about settling the defamation case. They offered $50,000 to make it go away quietly. What do you think? Francine asked me. I thought about it for a long time. $50,000 would cover all my legal expenses and then some. It would let me close this chapter and move forward. But it also felt like letting him off easy. What would happen if we went to trial? I asked. We would probably win, Francine said. The evidence is strong, But it would take months, maybe a year. And trials are expensive and emotionally draining. Counter with $75,000, I said, and I want a written apology that I can share with every client he contacted. Francine smiled. Now you are thinking like someone who knows her worth. They agreed to $70,000 and the written apology. The letter my father's attorney drafted was clinical and impersonal, but it acknowledged that false statements had been made about my business and apologized for any damage to my professional reputation. I sent copies to every client he had contacted. Most responded with supportive messages. 2 clients who had dropped me reached out about working together again. My business not only recovered but grew stronger. The story of how I had fought back against family manipulation spread through Portland's design community. Other designers who had faced similar situations reached out, sharing their own stories. I became known not just for my restaurant designs, but for my integrity and refusal to be pushed around. By spring, I had more work than I could handle alone. I hired an assistant, a recent design school graduate named Jasmine, who reminded me of myself at that age, hungry, talented, and determined to prove herself. One warm afternoon in April, I drove up to the cabin to start the landscaping work I had been planning. As I planted wildflower seeds along the path to the dock, my phone rang. Veronica. I almost did not answer, but curiosity won out. "Hey," she said when I picked up. "I know we have not talked much since everything happened. I just wanted you to know that the divorce is final. Mom got the house. Dad has to pay her alimony and half of everything that is left after he pays back Trevor." "How is he doing?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. "Not great," Veronica admitted. "He had to declare bankruptcy. The business is gone. He is working as a consultant now, making a fraction of what he used to earn. He is living in a small apartment in Beaverton." I waited for the satisfaction to come, the sense of righteous justice. Instead, I just felt a distant sadness. "And you?" I asked. "How are you?" "I am okay," Veronica said. "I got a full-time job managing a gallery. I have my own apartment now. The kids are adjusting." She paused. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness for all the years I sided with them against you. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see how wrong we were." "Thank you for saying that," I said. "I am not ready to rebuild a relationship yet. Maybe someday, but not yet." "I understand," Veronica said. "I just wanted you to know that I am proud of you, for fighting back, for not letting them take what was yours." After we hung up, I sat on the dock and watched the late afternoon sun paint the water gold and pink. I thought about the past year, about everything that had happened since my 27th birthday. I had bought this cabin hoping for peace. Instead, I had gotten a war. But in fighting that war, I had discovered something more valuable than peace. I had discovered my own strength. For 27 years, I had let my family make me feel small, unimportant, easily forgotten. I had shaped my life around their absence, their dismissal, their casual cruelty. But I was not small. I was not unimportant. And I was definitely not easily forgotten anymore. Summer arrived with warm winds and long daylight hours. The wildflowers I had planted bloomed in waves of purple, yellow, and white. The cabin became my weekend sanctuary, a place where I could work on design projects during the day and swim in the lake at sunset. Brooke, Daniel, and Kiara visited often. We established a tradition of monthly weekend gatherings at the cabin. Sometimes other friends joined us. Sometimes it was just the 4 of us, cooking meals together, playing games, talking until late into the night. One Saturday in July, as we sat around the fire pit watching stars emerge in the darkening sky, Daniel asked me something I had been thinking about myself. "Do you ever regret fighting back so hard?" he asked. "Do you ever wish you had just given them something to make them go away?" I considered the question seriously. "No," I said finally. "Because giving them something would not have made them go away. It would have just shown them that I could be manipulated." They would have come back for more, and more, and more. The only way to stop people like that is to stand your ground completely. Do you think you will ever reconcile with them? Kiara asked. I do not know, I admitted. My father would have to acknowledge what he did. Really acknowledge it. Not just offer some half-hearted apology crafted by his lawyer. And I am not sure he is capable of that level of self-awareness. As for my mother, she is still processing the fact that her entire life was built on lies. Maybe someday she will reach out and we can have an honest conversation. But I am not holding my breath. What about Veronica? Brooke asked. Veronica is trying, I said. I can see that she genuinely feels bad about how things went. But years of enabling abuse do not get erased by a few apologetic phone calls. If she keeps working on herself, keeps setting boundaries with our parents, maybe we can rebuild something eventually, but it will be a different relationship than we had before. It will have to be built on honesty. As summer turned to autumn, my business continued to thrive. I completed a major project for a high-end steakhouse that won a design award. The recognition brought more clients, more opportunities, more validation that I had been right to fight for what was mine. On October 15th, my 28th birthday, I returned to the cabin with Brooke, Daniel, Kiara, and a few other friends I had grown close to over the past year. We spent the day kayaking on the lake, grilling vegetables and salmon on the deck, and watching the autumn colors paint the mountains in shades of orange and red. As the sun set, Brooke raised her glass. To Addison, 28 years old, cabin owner, award-winning designer, and certified badass who does not take any nonsense from anyone. Everyone laughed and clinked glasses. I felt tears prick my eyes, but they were happy tears this time. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, I sat alone on the dock with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The lake was perfectly still, reflecting the stars above. I thought about the past year, about everything that had happened since the last time I sat on this dock on my birthday. I had lost my family, or at least the version of family I had clung to for so long. But in losing them, I had found something more valuable, myself. I had discovered that I was strong enough to fight back when attacked, that I was brave enough to stand alone when necessary, that I was worthy of love and respect, not because of what I could give others, but because of who I was. The cabin had been meant as a sanctuary, a place to escape from disappointment. Instead, it had become the catalyst for the biggest battle of my life. And in winning that battle, I had won something even more important. My freedom. I would never again wait for my parents to remember my birthday. I would never again shape my choices around their approval. I would never again let anyone make me feel small or unimportant or easily forgotten. I was done seeking validation from people who were incapable of giving it. I was done sacrificing my peace for the illusion of family harmony. I was done being the convenient child who did not need attention. From now on, I would celebrate my birthdays with people who chose to show up. I would invest my energy in relationships that were reciprocal. I would build my life around people who saw me, valued me, and loved me for who I actually was. My father spent the following years struggling financially, his reputation in Portland's business community destroyed beyond repair. He lost his house, his business, and most of his social connections. My mother eventually cut all contact with him after discovering additional lies about their finances. Veronica told me he had tried to reach out to her for money multiple times, but she had learned to say no. His life had become a cautionary tale about what happens when you build everything on lies and manipulation. The consequences he had tried so hard to avoid had caught up with him completely, and he faced them alone, without the family he had taken for granted. As for me, I sat on my dock on my 28th birthday and looked forward to a future built on truth, strength, and the love of people who had earned their place in my life. The revenge I had sought was not in my father's downfall, though that had happened anyway. The revenge was in my freedom, my peace, and my refusal to ever again be made small by people who did not deserve power over me.